This is Gemara Menachos, Daf Ayin Tes. And today's share has been sponsored by a close friend of the Daf that's been learning with us for years as a schos aliyas neshimasa for Miriam Mabas Eliezer HaKoyin. Siyata Deshmayo, all the learning, Talmud Torah Berabim should bring an incredible aliyas neshama to Miriam Bas Eliezer HaKoyin, whose yahrzeit is on Yud Aleph Nisan. The incredible Koyach HaTorah, especially Torah as we're leading up to Pesach, should bring the ultimate Aliyas Neshmasa, elevating her Heilige Neshama higher and higher in Gan Eden Shel Maila. We're holding over here on Erev Yantif B'Siyata Deshmaya as we pick it up from the Mishnah on the bottom of Ayin Tes Amid Beis. Says the Mishnah, and again we're continuing the Menachos, but we're going to be discussing the Menachos when they relate to the attachment to the main carbon. What happens if the carbon itself is puzzle? What happens with the lachme, the menachos, they go along with it? So says the Mishnah, shachta chutz zman v'chutz mekayma. If the carbon taida, as we're discussing, was shachted chutz zman v'chutz mekayma, kiddush alechem, the bread still is kadosh, and all the halachas that are going to go with it, meaning that either they're going to be pigel, as we'll see, or they're just going to be puzzle like the carbon. Shachta, if the animal was shachted, and him said treifa, like kiddush alechem. Now the breads, the lechem, does not have kedusha, as the animal was never the carbon, as we'll see. Shachta v'nimsa ba'al asmum. What if you shechted it and the animal has a mum? Eilizer Aimer Kidesh Chamar like Kiddush. Shachta Shalei Lishma. V'chein, and similarly Ayol Hami Luim. V'chein Kivsei Aser Sheshachta Lishman like Kiddush Alechem. So as we're starting to see, we're discussing what is the status of the lachmei taida when the taida itself, when the animal itself has issues ranging from machshavais zarais, machshavais pigol, chutzes manachos mekayma, issues of treifa balasmom, and issues of shalei lishma. So says the Gemara, let's understand who is the Tan of our Mishnah. Masnisan Mani. Rabbi Meir, the Tanya Zaklal. Says the Mishnah, any case where the animal's psul is before the shchita, but if the psul is after the shchita, kiddush alechem. And therefore, so that's a psul after the shchita. The animal is inherently, ostensibly fine. It's a machshava that's messing you up. Kiddush alechem. Shachta v'nimsa treifa. That's before the shchita, because the animal was no good. Like kiddush alechem. Shachta, and of course all these dinam are the exact dinam of our Mishnah, because that's how it fits. Our Meir is the Tan of our Mishnah. Shachta, says the Gemara as we turn over to Ayin Tesam at Aleph, if Yishachta v'nim says balasmum, an animal is found to have a mun, Rav Lezer Eimer Kiddush, Shomer like Kiddush, Tivri Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda, Lenech Rav Lezer Rabbi Yeshua, Shachta v'nim said Treif, Bashal Kiddush. That's not the machlekes achos zman Kiddush, v'albamum shalei Kiddush. So what is the machlekes? Rabbi Eliazar and Rabbi Yeshua. V'alma, what are they arguing about? Al chutz lemekaymai. They're arguing dafka where it's shechted with a machshava to eat it not in the right place. Shavlezer Eimer Kiddush, Yeshua like Kiddush. Omer Rabbi Eliazar. Now we're going to try to understand what exactly is this machlekes. Omer Rabbi Eliazar. Hay v'chutz zmanei psul, v'chutz mekaymei pasul. Chutz zmanei is pasul, chutz mekaymei is pasul. Ma chutz zmanei Kiddush, av chutz mekaymei Kiddush. Just like says Rabbi Eliezer, chutz zmanei, chutz mekaymei, both are psulim. Therefore, if one of them creates that the bread of the lachmei toidas kedusha, so to the other. Amar Rabbi Yeshua. Says Rabbi Yeshua, no, don't equate chutz l'zman and chutz l'mekaymai. Equate it with Baal Mom. So the shaila is, where do we pin? Where do we direct? How do we view the case of? How do we view the case of chutz limit kaymai? Omer le Rabbi Eliezer, ani demisiu lechutz zmanoi. I equate a chutz l'mekaymai to chutz zmanoi. V'ata and you demisiu lebal mom, you equate it to bal mom. Nira lemidaime, which is it more comparable? Says Rabbi Eliezer. Indim lechutz zmanoi, nidainanu mechutz zmanoi. If it's similar to chutz zmanoi, then it should have the lachas of chutz zmanoi. And even indim lebalmam, neither in balmam, whichever one it's going to be more comparable, that's the halachas it's going to get. So his chil Rav Eliezer ladon. So Eliezer begins to dan. Sol machshava, his chil Rav Eliezer ladon. Danim sol machshava. Maybe Psal Machshava. Says Rav Eliezer, let's equate and let's learn a Psal of Machshava from Psal Machshava. And therefore, Chutz l'mekaymai to Chutz l'zmanoi. And what should you not do? Maybe Psal Machshava, maybe Psal Agov, which is going to be the case of Balmum. That's how Rav Eliezer learned it. His Rav Yeshua Ladin says Rav Yeshua, no. Tanim Psal she'ein by cars, Psal she'ein by cars. Says Rav Yeshua, I'll tell you a different similarity. It's tali, does it have karis or not? Which is going to be similar to the Balmum. And don't ask from Chutz l'zman apostle, sheish by karis. That was number one, how they both learned. And furthermore, says Rav Yeshua, I'll learn it out from Shalai Lishma, Shapasal Machshava, Vein by race. So Yeshua has two reasons to learn it as such. Vishasak, Rav Eliezer is quiet. So this is how the second Shita in the Braisa learned the Machlekes of Eliezer and Rav Yeshua. Rabbi Meir comes along in Rabbi Meir Maishana. According to Rabbi Meir, Maishana Shachtav and Imsa Treifa Dave Psula Kodim Shchita. Maino Shachtav and Imsa Balas Montalavi Psula Kodim Shchita. Says Rabbi Meir, I don't understand. Probably a kasha that bothering many. Treifa is in the animal. Balas Mom is in the animal. So what's the difference? Says the Gemara. Bedukin Shevahayin. You know the Balmon that we're talking about is a cataract in the eye. Valim Javikiva Damar. Deim Alu Liyardu. If it's brought in the Mizbeach, it doesn't go down. It's a minor Balmum, and therefore it would not possible b'di'evid. Rabbi Yeshua. What does Rabbi Yeshua argue? Kiyam Rabbi Akiva. When does Rabbi Akiva say his din? Im Alu Liyardu is Bipsulai de Gufei. He only says with regard to the carbon itself that b'di'evet, if the animal is brought in the mizbeach, it's going to be kaddish. It's going to be kash. It's going to be okay. But you want to know what's the status of the accompanying breads that's brought with it. That we have no raya to, and that we're going to say is going to be a problem. Will not have kedusha. Itmar says the Gemara. One more shtickle before the new Mishnah. Itmar. Shachta chutz l'zmanoi. Someone shechted a carbon chatas chutz l'zmanoi. Im also leiteirate. If it was brought in the mizbeach, we leave it there. Chutz l'mekaymai. Rav Amar teirate. Rav Amar leiteirate. Rav Rav Yeshua. Rav Eliezer. So says the Gemara l'chayra. This machlek is Rav and Rav as our machlek of Eliezer and Yeshua. Rava is learning like Rav Yeshua. A chutz l'mekaymai is like balas mom, and therefore, just like a mom that's brought in the mizbeach has to be brought down, so to chutz l'mekaymai. Rabba is saying like Rabbi Eliezer that chutz l'mekaymai is like chutz l'zmanoi, just like chutz l'zmanoi b'di'eved is going to stay on the mizbeach, so to over here chutz l'mekaymai. But says the Gemara, but indeed v'hader bei Rabba ligabe de Rava. Rabba was chayzer to hold like Rava. Midahader Bey Rav Eliezer Likabi Rav Yeshua, just like Rav Eliezer was chayzer in favor of Rav Yeshua. Igadiam another lashon avagav the other Rav Eliezer Rav Yeshua Rav Likabi Rav Eloi Hader Bey. Why? What's the chalik? Over there we learned out from Shalei Shema v'hachi don't say Shalei Shema im also loiteri, therefore you cannot learn it out from there. The final case in the Mishnah was Shachta Shalei Shema, and then we ended off with the shlamim of the miluim, the shlamim of the shtei kvasim of Shavuos Shalei Lishma. Then we said the bread is not kaddish. Amar Ababa Shavak Tana Dida and Ayel Nazir. What happened to Ayel Nazir? V'nakat Ayel de miluim. The shchiach v'nakat Ayel de miluim. Why do we use a case that's not as common? The reason is because that was the ikar case, and as much as Ayel de Nazir is more common, we bring the original makar, the original McCoy, which is going to be the miluim. Says the next Mishnah. And now we pivot and we move from the lachmei taida to that level of accompanying carbon to the nisachim. HaNisachim shekitshay bekli, the libations, the nisachim that were mekudash, that were consecrated in a kli shares, and then v'nimsa zevach pasel. Mamish, a similar din to the previous Mishnah, and now the carbon is found to be pasel. Im yesh zevach acher, and there's another carbon. Meaning you have these nisachim, you have this yayin over here, you have this wine, so the carbon's found to be pasal. So if you have another carbon that needs nisachim, that needs this wine, then yakrivu yimai can bring with it. Vimlav yifsalu belina, and then it's left overnight and it becomes pasal. And the simple reason over here is once the nisachim, once these wines are put into kli shares, they have kedusha. And therefore, there's nothing that could be done with them, as the Gemara will explain. Says the Gemara, Amar Ziri Einan Nisachim Miskachin Ella B'Shchitas HaZevach. Says Ziri, the kedusha that goes on to the Nisachim is not just putting it into the Kli Shares, it's with the Shchita. My time, Amar Kra Zevach Unisachim. Tanan, we learned in a Mishnah frakti Gemara on Ziri. Hanisachim sheketchay beklevim zevach basal miyish zevach achi gravim mavim laviv sobelina. My love divsulu b'shchita. Doesn't the Mishnah mean simply? What does it mean that the carbon was found to be basal? It means v'shchita. So we see that the Nisachim get kedusha just from being in the kli. Loi says the Gemara divsulu b'ezrika keman ki Rabbi Damar shnei devarim hamatirin. Malin Zebazeh says Rabbi, two things that are matir can be ma'ala, can elevate the carbon. One, Malin Zeh, Beloi Zeh. Responds the Gemara, no, if you look at Rav Eliazer, Rav Shem, Menachos, Iskin, and Shkil, Daman, Bekais, to a case where you're makabel in the kais, and Nishvach, and it's spilled on the ground. Therefore, there was no din zurika at all. As we turn over to Ayin Testament base, says the Gemara, Rav Eliazer, Rav Shemin, so like I say, Davua the Amar, he also like Rav Shemin that old Kolaimi Lizraik Kizarik Dami. So says the Gemara thought that has to mamish be that the Zrika was done. It says the Gemara, no, the klal of Kolaimi, that since it's fit for it, that's going to be enough. Now let's delve a little bit deeper into the Mishnah. Amar Mar. Says the Gemara, 3 lines down, Ayin Testament base. If there's another carbon, use these Nisachim with that carbon. Frak Gemara of Amar of Chista. But Rav Chista said, that if there's oil that was separated for this mincha, apostle mincha acheres, it cannot be used for another mincha. So why does the Mishnah say that if this carbon is no longer, you bring with another carbon? What do you mean? Amar Rav Yana, leiv bezdin masna leihem. Bezdin makes a tanai that what? If you need it for another carbon, you do. Then if you need it for this carbon, great. If not, bring it for another carbon. Oil should be the same thing. Why did Rav Chista say that if there's shemin shefrisha l'shem mincha zeh pasol l'shem mincha acheres? Why don't we say the same thing? Leiv bezdin masna halim. Says the Gemara shemin gufa. The mincha, shemen is the essential part of the mincha. Therefore, you cannot transfer it. But with the Nesachim, it's not ikari, it's not essential, therefore it could be transferred. Says the Gemara of Lista Aleim, but let the Bezdin make it Tanai, Tenifku Lechulin. Why do they have to make it Tanai? You can use it for another carbon. So make it Tanai that it goes Lechulin. Explains the Gemara, Gzeir Shem Yamru Moitzim Klisharis, the whole people are going to think that even something which is a klishares, even something which went in and got the kedusha, could then be deconsecrated, which cannot be done. Over here it would work because it would be a tanai, but in general it would not work, and that's the concern. Frag the Gemara Hashanami, so why don't we make Gzeira? Make a Gzeira that people are going to think you can bring even another carbon. Says the Gemara, Hatani Metasya ben Yehuda, Matas ben Yehuda learned, talking about that another carbon is being shechted that moment. So therefore, people are not necessarily going to know. Meaning it's not shot that the first carbon is no longer go find a new carbon. If it's mamish on the docket, then it can be brought with it. Based on what you're saying, that if there's not on the carbon waiting, it's going to be possible. 2 lines on the white lines, Belina. But wait, at the Tani say for the end of the Mishnah learned, live like this with the day. So the Mishnah should have differentiated within these cases. Mrim. Moving over to the first white line. Responds to the Gemara, you're right. Tachanami comments to the Mishnah merely means. But you have to read it in to the Mishnah. Frag the Gemara, with this we're going to conclude. How do we explain it on the bottom of Rav Aleph? We said that according to Rav Shimon, it's a Tanai Bezdin, and that's why the Nesachim could change to another carbon. Timidin Shachul Tzibur the Rav Shimon Ein Niftin Timimim the Divrei Chacham Niftin Timimim. So what do we see? We see we don't say Leivazim Masna Leim. Responds the Gemara Shani also this to Tekanta Biriyah over there in that Mishnah by the carbon Tamid. There's another way to go about it. Let it graze until they get a mum, and that's why we don't go down the simple road of Leiv Vezdim Masna Aleim. But by us, we have no other choice. We have to say the Yisrael is Leiv Vezdim Masna Aleim. Pick it up from the Mishnah the next year, B'siyata Dishmaya.